Well, for me personally, like I've got European background, but I'm 7 generations I'm 7 generations New Zealander, but I identify myself as Pākehā, and I've been brought up in a fluent Māori as well, and brought up in a Māori community, so I have really strong ties to Māori culture, etc. And for me personally, the Treaty of Waitangi is the basis on which why I'm here and why every New Zealander is here. And I think the importance of that is that we need to value the Treaty of Waitangi, and we need to we need to use it as a reference point to say, actually, this is the reason why we are here, and this is the only reason why we are here. So whenever I do my PPR, I always introduce myself as a person of the Treaty of Waitangi, on the backgrounds of the Treaty of Waitangi. Yeah, that's why I stand here. Well, I think it's pretty clear to state that, it's pretty obvious that the government, the New Zealand government, and historically has used Māori to their own benefit and has taken land from Māori, and a lot of land at that, which has also resulted in areas that were once thriving that are now poverty-stricken. And I don't think the treaty has been upheld, because if you even look at the language, like I can't remember the percentage of New Zealanders who speak it, but it's like around 100,000 New Zealanders who speak Māori fluently, and that's just not enough. And I think the true treasures of Māori culture, so the language, their rights, their land, and that hasn't been upheld, and that hasn't been respected or even acknowledged by the government. I think that's ridiculous, because I think the Waitangi Tribunal has had a major part in our history, because it actually is the New Zealand government realising that they have made mistakes and trying to fix it. I don't think in some cases they've necessarily done it right. Like, I don't think money can settle everything, and I think that's very, it can't settle everything, and it can't take the place of land. And I think it's ridiculous to think that the Waitangi Tribunal, I think it's important to acknowledge the fact that this shouldn't be the end, and that there is still a lot more work to be done. And I don't think the Waitangi Tribunal is the end of anything. I think it's about dispelling ignorance and the fact of sort of owning our history. And I recently went on a history trip up to the Waikato, and we saw, at one point we were on the bus driving, and they were like, my teacher said, from now on all this land was stolen from Māoris. And we drove for a very, very long time. And I think the fact that it's about awareness, and it's about saying this is what has happened in the past, and that we can't change the past, but we can change what we have now. And I think we need to start learning the language, because I think that's also one of the key barriers. Because I think if people know the language, if people are more familiarized with it, language is culture and culture is language, and I think that's a really important part in the future. But I also think it's about having exhibitions like these. It's about having these really important documents on show so people know about it. And young people not just going to history being like, oh God, we're learning about the Treaty of Waitangi again. It's about, actually, this is a really important part of our history. I think we have the opportunity, and like I said, we've had an opportunity for a very long time, and it's taken us as a nation and as a culture to realise we have this opportunity, but also to seize it and to actually start making changes about how we view ourselves, how we view Māori, how we view them as a people. And we don't really see it, but there's so much ingrained sort of racism in our culture that is still thriving. And I think it's for us to just take a step back and look at ourselves and think about everything we've learned and where it actually comes from. Because I think some stuff is really beneficial, but a lot of the stuff is still tied into this sort of patriarchy, but also this sort of really limited sort of narrow-minded view of Māori and of New Zealand and of what we should be as a nation. And I don't think, I agree with that. I think, it's a milestone, obviously, because it's women facing this barrier and now having the chance to actually have a voice in what they want in the society. And I think New Zealand allowing their voices to be heard for the first time in the world, we were the first people to let women vote, I think is very significant, because it means that it's just acknowledging, it's a very basic thing of acknowledging that women do have a mind and they do have thoughts and they do think about politics and they also, can have opinions. And I think acknowledging that is basic, but it was a milestone. I think feminism in today is very topical, and I think, and it's often gets very controversial because a lot of people still ask, well, do we still need feminism? And I think the fact that that question is being asked means that we obviously still do, because there's still, I think now it's about unpicking our learning. Like I said before, it's about, we've still got so many ingrained ideas in our head about what a woman should be like and all these sort of stereotypes of what women should be and how they can cope with situations, etc. And I think we need to unlearn these ideas, and I think there's still so many barriers. And the problem about these barriers is they're barriers that you can't see. It's barriers that women experience. They don't necessarily talk about, but they're not things that you can physically see. And just because you can't see them doesn't mean that they exist. And I think that's what we're trying to face now, is these invisible barriers that are still very much alive and still very much present for women to face, but that are harder to acknowledge because we can't see them. Well, I think, the first, the basic thing that women and men don't get paid the same much for doing the same job. And that just doesn't make sense. It just really doesn't make sense to me. There's no other way of talking about it. We should get paid for the work that we do, not for, it's the actions that we make. That's what we're getting paid for. It's not who we are or where I come from or what socio-economic group I come from. It's about the work that I'm doing. It's about what I'm trying to achieve, not about all these other ideas, which are obviously important, but if you think about it, I don't know. It's just, I don't think it's important. Well, I think Miley Cyrus is really interesting for the fact that she was subjected so early on to scrutiny in every part of her life. And that would be if I think about myself in that situation, I don't know how I would cope. It's awful having to experience that at such a young age. And obviously she broke out and she started doing her own thing. And because it was so extreme, that people started judging her for that. But the fact that, why should we be judging her for that? Because she's just doing her, and that's what she might need to do for herself. It's a complex one because I think it's a balance between women owning their bodies and also women being respected for their bodies. And I think in the media there's a lot of sexualization of females, unnecessary sexualization. Like, if you're like advertising toys, you do not need to put a naked woman in there. Like, that's ridiculous. But I think there's also the fact of women are sexual creatures, humans are sexual creatures, and we all have our own needs and we all have our own different ways of showing it. So some people might not want to post naked photos online, but some people like Kim Kardashian, well, they do. And I think we need to respect how different people show their sexuality. And I think it's realizing that a lot of different women show their sexuality in different ways. So some people like to dress up, some people don't. And it's accepting that. And I don't think you can judge another woman based on how she shows her sexuality, because I think that's for her to make up her mind. I don't feel safe because I still believe these things, and I know a lot of other people around me still do, but I know there's a lot of people in this world who still have negative, or who don't make me feel safe because they believe that they can tell me what to wear, or they can make remarks on my body on the street, or they can, run me into a bushes and think they can rape me. That's not acceptable. And people out there still exist, because if you look at the media and you look at all these women who are facing these injustices every day, and then when they're complaining about it to the police, they're not being heard. I'm not safe, and no woman is ever safe. And I think that's where we have to start. We have to start by acknowledging that all these things are happening, and then we have to start realizing that we can do something about it and make a difference. Well, there's so many different things we have to do, but obviously the pay gap, the wage gap, but also I think one of the most important things for me is sexual abuse, and the fact that every girl I know has experienced some form of sexual abuse, not sexual abuse, but violation. And the fact that that shouldn't happen, because I'm only 16 and I'm friends with a lot of girls, and the fact that that's true, it's really upsetting. And I think if I was the most powerful woman in New Zealand, I would give, I don't know how I would support it, but I think there has to be a change in this mindset now, that the fact that women, men, can think they can just do that. And the thing is, it's not just a one-way thing. It's not just men towards women. And the fact of any sexual abuser, whether woman or man or anything, that's just not okay. It doesn't matter about gender. It matters about the fact that people think that they can do this to other people. And the thing is, it's majority women who are the victims. But the thing is, we can't silence the male victims as well, because they just have an equal voice. But the women victims, they're majority. And so that's who we do focus on, because, like you said, 99.9% are females who are subjugated to this violence and this sort of sexual trauma almost. The fact that rape victims, that's traumatizing, and that affects their whole entire lives, and also the people around them. It's not just one person being affected, it's that person and everyone they know.